Welcome to Movie Rundown. Today, we are going to take a look at the movie Behemoth. If you're ready, let's begin. At the beginning of the movie, while a man named Joshua is out for a run, he encounters a terrifying demonic goat and starts running away from it. After a while, he looks back and sees nothing. But when he turns around again, he sees the goat, and then it disappears when he looks at a car. They are already confusing us in the early stages of the film. Then we see a woman named Amy and a little girl lying on a stretcher. After that, Joshua goes to the house of a couple he knows and does some research in the office there. Then he encounters a person named Dr. Louis C. Woeland. As he moves forward, he sees 3 ropes being pulled back and quickly gathers his belongings and escapes. When he gets on the subway, he sees a bug on the neck of the man in front of him and moves away. Then he calls a friend on his phone and talks about Dr. Woeland. While it seems like everyone on the subway is listening to him, Joshua's speech becomes tense, and for a moment, he sees the man in front of him in a terrifying state and quickly leaves the subway. Joshua enters the house, and his wife Amy is a bit angry with him. Joshua changes his clothes and goes for a run, and the demonic goat chases after him again. He goes back home and tries to tell Amy what happened, but she doesn't hear him. Then he finds Amy packing her belongings. Amy is tired of his conspiracy theories and hallucinations, and she leaves the house without listening to him. After that, Joshua joins a protest related to chemicals and gives an interview. When Dr. Woeland passes by, Joshua shouts at him, telling him that his daughter is sick because of the chemicals produced by Dr. Woeland, but the doctor doesn't listen to him. Then Joshua goes to the door where he will exit, and a fight breaks out between them, and Joshua gets shot in the stomach. Dominic takes Dr. Woeland hostage and puts him in a minibus. Joshua asks Dr. Woeland for answers about what made his daughter sick, but the doctor is not determined to give him an answer. After Joshua's bleeding increases, he bandages himself but forgets the iodine. While the gas station employee runs to bring him iodine, a car runs over him and kills him. Then this car starts chasing Joshua and the others, but Dominic takes a risky decision and crosses the train tracks, and the other car crashes into the train. They all go to a motel and rent a room, and we see a man coming out of the crashed car. Dominic takes Dr. Woeland to the room and ties him up, and Joshua gets some medicine for his wound and hears on the news that the white minibus they used is being searched by the police. Since he forgot to take Keel's ID, he calls the owner of the hotel and finds him in a horrifying state, even with a sweet bug on his forehead. He asks him for the location of the store and leaves. Joshua calls Amy, and she is very tense. Then their sick daughter gets worse, and Amy tells him to come here and hangs up the phone. Joshua asks Dr. Woeland about the deep pointe damping that made his daughter sick, but Woeland gives him evasive answers. Joshua gets angry and attacks him, but his wound hurts him, and we see Azella, Woeland's bodyguard, approaching. Joshua takes out a knife and removes the bullet from his stomach, and a strange creature comes out of his stomach, but it disappears immediately. Meanwhile, Dr. Woeland manipulates Dominic by telling him that Keel is in love with Joshua, and Dominic punches him, but Woeland doesn't give up on trying to deceive him. Joshua comes in, talks about how much removing the bullet from his wound hurt, and Dominic leaves through the door and decides to run away, but he sees a creature in the back seat of the car. While running away from the creature, a much bigger monster comes from behind and bites his head. Meanwhile, Joshua pulls out a knife against Woeland and tries to get answers from him, but Woeland only gives clever answers and shows demonic signs. Keely gets some medicine from the pharmacy, and just as she is about to leave, Azella comes in. Keely starts running away, hides behind the back of a car. Azella enters the pharmacy and asks the employee about Keel's whereabouts, but when the pharmacist doesn't answer, Azella kills him by smashing his head. Joshua is experiencing strange hallucinations, and Keely comes and tells him what happened, but Joshua suspects her. Keely explains that he shouldn't be suspicious and stabs Dr. Woeland in the shoulder. Joshua goes outside to call Dominic but can't find him. After walking a bit further, he calls out to him and his vision starts to blur. After putting his ear to a room's door, he hears children's voices. This time, Dr. Woeland tries to get into Keel's mind, telling her that he will give her a large amount of money if she leaves everyone and goes with him. And he says he can do it with just one phone call. Although Keely initially refuses, she later becomes confused and makes a phone call, asking her boss for 5 million USD. Then Keel sees that the money has been deposited into her account, but suddenly starts experiencing hallucinations. Joshua, horrified, sees Dominic's lifeless body. Keely goes to the bathroom, and after seeing strange images, a monster grabs her. Keely commits suicide and dies. Joshua enters the room and tells about Dominic's death, but instead finds Keel, who has taken her own life, and he says it's Dr. Woeland's fault. However, Dr. Woeland, who is tied to a chair, claims that he didn't do anything. Joshua calls his wife and learns that their daughter's liver has failed. The daughter will undergo surgery, and Joshua first talks to his daughter and then to his wife. When he goes to the operating room, the TV turns on first, and then everything starts moving. Joshua loses himself and sees many strange images. When Joshua comes to his senses, Dr. Woeland mocks him and Joshua realizes that the cause of the poison is Dr. Woeland himself. He decides to leave the room, but Azello is approaching him. Joshua thinks of a good idea and hides Dr. Woeland while putting a paper bag over his own head. Azello enters the room, and as she advances, Joshua stabs her with a piece of glass, thinking she's dead. But Azello transforms into a demon, and a crazy fight ensues between them. The deer hanging on the wall and screaming all night saves Joshua. Then we see that Dr. Woeland is dead, and immediately after, the boss comes and asks Joshua for his soul in exchange for his daughter's life. Joshua accepts this, and they shake hands. Joshua has agreed to go to hell, and he asks the boss how much time he has left. The boss tells him that he's already in hell, and Joshua transforms into Dr. Woeland. Joshua's daughter truly recovers, and the movie ends here. If you enjoyed the content, please consider liking and subscribing to show your support. By doing so, you'll stay updated with future content and help us reach a wider audience. Your support means a lot to us.